Never assume humans were always on top. We almost died out more than once. We built cities that later vanished under sand, ice, and jungle. We traded ideas across oceans long before anyone said the word globalization. Think history is simple? In this long video, we race from small hunter bands in Africa to probes leaving the solar system. I'll show you 5 moments when civilization almost broke or leveled up. Miss even one and your world disappears. The last turning point is happening now, and you're in it. Let's start before there were nations, kings, or even farms, and work together to hunt and gather. What set our species apart was not muscle, it was shared brains. Language, even if it began simple, let people warn, plan, and teach. Knowledge could stack. A sharp edge made by one person could be improved by the next. Culture became our survival cheat code. Early humans did not stay put. By roughly 70,000 years ago, give or take, groups were moving out of Africa. Coastlines, river valleys, and land bridges during the Ice Age opened paths. They met other human cousins like Neanderthals and Denisovans. Sometimes they fought, sometimes they had children together. Bits of those cousins' DNA still ride in many of us today. Proof that human history has always been a braided river, not a single stream. Life was risky. Climate swung between warm and cold. A giant volcanic event in Indonesia, at tens of thousands of years ago, may have darkened skies worldwide. Some scientists think our numbers crashed low. Others say the hit was smaller. Either way, the fact we're still here means small. Mobile bands could adapt, move when food failed, try new plants, follow herds, trade with neighbors. Flexibility kept our line alive. Art shows up early. Cave walls with animals so detailed you can almost feel fur. Carved bone, beads made from shells carried far inland. But these weren't extra hobbies. They were how people shared meaning, identity, and memory. Story came before writing. If you could tell the group where to find water or explain a hunt, you mattered. If you could retell the group's past, you gave them reasons to stay together. Story and survival grew side by side. For most of our time on Earth, people lived as foragers. Then, slowly in many places, something shifted. People began tending wild grains, clearing ground, and staying longer in one spot. This was not one big agricultural revolution that flipped overnight. It was thousands of experiments spread across centuries. In the Fertile Crescent, people managed wheat and barley. In China, early rice and millet. In New Guinea's highlands, root crops like taro and yam. In the Sahel belt of West Africa, sorghum and pearl millet. In the Americas, maize, squash and beans, the three sisters in some regions. And in the Andes highlands, potato and quinoa later joined the mix. Why farm? For some groups, climate changes made wild food less reliable. In rich river zones, staying put meant more babies could survive. Seeds dropped near camp meant more food next season. Over time, people noticed which plants gave bigger harvests and saved those seeds. That slow choosing, selection, turned wild plants into crops. Animals followed: goats, sheep, pigs, cattle, chickens, llamas, alpacas, and of course, dogs. Herding gave meat, milk, wool, pulling power, protection, and yes, new disease germs that later helped farming populations build some immunity that city people would inherit. Farming had trade-offs. Diets narrowed, work hours rose, diseases spread in crowded villages, floods or droughts hit harder when you depended on one field. But farming could support more people on the same land, and food surpluses did something huge. They freed some people to do other work. When not everyone had to grow food, some could weave, build, make tools, map the stars, heal the sick, fight wars, or track who owed grain. That last job, keeping track, pushed us toward writing. The first big clusters of people grew in river valleys, where floods renewed soil. The Tigris and Euphrates, the Nile, the Indus, the Yellow River. Seasonal water let farmers grow more grain than the village could eat. Extra grain fed specialists and leaders. Walls, temples, workshops, and storehouses rose. Cities were new and fragile. They needed rules, labor, and shared beliefs strong enough to pull strangers into one project. Take an early city in Mesopotamia. Picture canals guiding floodwater, barley fields beyond the walls, and temple towers, ziggurats, stacked like steps toward the sky. Priests or rulers claimed the gods wanted offerings. Offerings needed grain. Grain needed workers. Workers needed to be counted. Clay tokens became marks. Marks became symbols pressed into wet tablets. Over time, those marks turned into writing, all because people had to remember who gave what, when, and how much was still in storage. Egypt followed its own rhythm on the Nile. Predictable floods laid rich silt along a long green strip. A king, the pharaoh, was seen as a bridge to the gods, which helped organize huge crews to build monuments and manage water. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, carefully planned cities with drains, straight streets, and standardized bricks show a different kind of order. Less about what giant kings we can name, more about shared systems we still don't fully read because their script remains undeciphered. In China, oracle bones show early writing used to ask questions of ancestors and the spirit world. Early complex centers also rose in Mesoamerica, like the Olmec heartland, and in the Andes, with coastal temple sites and highland communities that would later feed great empires. Africa beyond the Nile grew trading and farming centers along the Niger. Europe held farming villages that slowly linked into chiefdoms. We're now at our first big network age, bronze. Mix copper and tin, and you get a metal harder than pure copper. But copper and tin rarely sit in the same place. That forced trade over long distances. Traders carried metal, ideas, and stories between regions. Think of bronze as the first internet of materials. If one node failed, others felt it. Around 1200 BCE, many Bronze Age powers around the eastern Mediterranean crashed. Cities burned, trade broke, people moved. Causes likely included drought, quakes, invasions by groups on the move, and rival warlords. When one link snapped, others followed. A network can't fall like dominoes when supply lines break. Iron was harder to smelt at first, but far more common in the Earth's crust. Once people learned to work it well, weapons and tools could be made in more places by more people. This helped new states rise. Assyria, then Persia, and many others across Eurasia and Africa. Empires grew bigger. Roads, relay stations, coin money, and taxes tied far lands to one center. But giant states needed glue stronger than fear. Belief systems that crossed borders began to spread. Ideas travel on roads, in caravans, on ships, and in the heads of ordinary people. In India, new teachings questioned old social orders. Buddhism offered a path out of suffering open to many, and spread across Asia along trade routes. Hindu traditions blended local gods, ritual and philosophy into a flexible family of beliefs that adapted as they moved. In the Mediterranean world, small Jewish communities under Roman rule became the seedbed for Christianity, which said salvation was open to all, rich or poor. In Arabia, Islam joined faith and law, and spread with trade and conquest across a huge zone from Spain to Southeast Asia. In China, Confucian thought, legalist policy, Taoist philosophy, and later Buddhist ideas mixed and shaped both state rule and daily life for millions. While ideas spread, so did goods. The Silk Roads were not one road but a web linking China, Central Asia, India, Persia, and the Mediterranean. Silk moved west. Glass, wool, spices, paper, and ideas moved east. South of the land routes, monsoon winds turned the Indian Ocean into a giant seasonal highway. Sailors timed departures to ride predictable winds across the Arabian Sea, down the Swahili coast, and out toward Southeast Asia. In the Sahara, camel caravans hauled salt, gold, books, and people between North and West Africa. Trade also moved germs. The Black Death in the 14th century rode trade paths, likely starting in Central Asia, hitting the Middle East, Europe, North Africa, and beyond. Up to a third or more of some regions died. Labor shortages followed. Social orders shook. In Europe, this helped weaken old feudal ties and raised wages for survivors. In other places, power shifted in different ways. Big lesson, our links make us rich and vulnerable. Gunpowder, better ships, and new navigation tools gave some states a sharp edge. Chinese fleets under Zheng, who reached East Africa in the early 1400s, showing what a large state navy could do. But the power shift that reshaped the map came when Iberian sailors, Portuguese and Spanish, crossed the Atlantic and rounded Africa. The Columbian exchange began. Plants, animals, people, and germs moving between old and new worlds. Maize and potatoes from the Americas boosted populations in Europe, Africa, and Asia. Horses and cattle changed life in the Americas. Chili peppers spiced cuisines across Asia and Africa. Smallpox and other old world diseases devastated many indigenous communities who had no prior exposure. Silver from mines in the Americas poured into global trade. Much of it crossed the Atlantic to Europe and then flowed onto Asia, especially China, where taxes in silver drove demand. A world money loop formed.
At the same time, the Atlantic slave trade tore millions of Africans from their homes and forced them across the ocean. Plantations in the Americas grew sugar, cotton, and tobacco that fed new habits and industries in Europe. Wealth rose for some, pain for many, and global inequality dug in deep roots. Ideas struck back. The scientific revolution changed how some people ask questions about nature. Test, measure, repeat. Instruments improved. Better lenses, better clocks, better math. In Britain, access to coal and iron, finance, and expanding markets set the stage for the Industrial Revolution. Machines spun thread faster than hands. Steam-powered mills, pumps, and trains. People moved from farms to factory towns. smoke, noise, long hours, but also cheap cloth, rising output, and new jobs. Industrial power became military power. Revolutions in politics followed the energy shift. The American Revolution argued that government should rest on the consent of the governed, or at least of some of them at first. The French Revolution pushed ideas of rights and citizenship, then spun into terror and empire. The Haitian Revolution, led by enslaved people, overthrew slavery and colonial rule, proof that talk of liberty could not be kept away from those denied it. Across Latin America, leaders broke from Spain and Portugal. In many places, the old order bent, snapped, and reformed. The 19th century wired the planet. Steamships shrank oceans. Railroads cut across continents. Telegraph lines carried messages faster than horses for the first time in history. Empires raced to grab land, markets, and resources. European powers carved up Africa in meetings held thousands of miles away from the people who lived there. In Asia, Britain forced opium into China, then took Hong Kong after war. Japan watched these threats, industrialized fast in the Meiji era, and became an imperial power itself. Industrial life created new social pressures, crowded cities, child labor, pollution. Workers formed unions, thinkers proposed socialism, communism, or regulated capitalism to fix the gap between owners and labor. Meanwhile, science marched forward. Germ theory saved lives, fertilizers lifted crop yields, electricity lit streets, the internal combustion engine moved people farther and faster. World population surged. The 20th century hit hard. World War I showed how industrial machines turned to mass killing when tied to rival empires and tight alliances. Old monarchies fell, new borders were drawn that ignored local lines and plotted future conflicts. The Great Depression then showed how global finance links could drag whole economies down. Out of that chaos, some turned to extreme answers: fascism, Nazism, fueling World War II. That war killed tens of millions and ended with nuclear weapons, a new kind of threat where few decisions could end varies. After 1945, the war split into power blocs led by the United States and the Soviet Union. A Cold War followed, arms races, proxy war spies, and a contest to put humans in space. Yet the same year saw waves of decolonization. Countries in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East won or fought for independence. New nations had to build states, economies, and identities while caught between superpower pressure and local needs. Global institutions tried to manage risk: the United Nations, the World Bank, new trade systems, health agencies. Some worked better than others. Meanwhile, science and technology kept reshaping daily life. Vaccines cut deadly diseases. Satellites ringed the planet. Computers shrank from rooms to pockets. New seeds and fertilizers. The Green Revolution fed more people. Late in the century, the internet stitched communication together in real time. A message could circle the globe in seconds, and a financial shock in one market could hit jobs on another continent. Let's talk about the planet itself. For thousands of years, our numbers were low enough that forests regrew and rivers cleared after local damage. Industrial growth changed that scale. We dug fossil fuels, laid down over millions of years, and burned them in centuries. Carbon built up in the air. Climates shifted, seas rose, storms changed. We built a global civilization, able to see these changes from space, but still struggling to agree on how to slow them. This is one of those turning points I promised. Our response will shape every chapter after this one. Another current turning point is digital life. Data shapes power. Who owns your information? Who trains the systems that will guide cars, trade stocks, or write code? In past ages, writing let kings tax grain. Printing let reformers challenge kings. Today, networks let anyone publish and let lies spread fast. Managing truth at scale may be as hard and as important as planting the first fields. Civilizations run on trust. When trust cracks, systems fail. So what even is a civilization? It's not just cities or writing. It's a group of people linked by shared rules, stories, and systems that last beyond one lifetime and stretch across space. Civilizations rise when we solve problems together. Food, safety, belief, trade, law, they fall when we stop solving, or when shocks outrun our ability to adapt. But pieces rarely vanish. Later societies pick up tools, crops, myths, even building styles from those before them. Rome fell, yet Latin lived on in new languages. Maya cities emptied in waves, but Maya people and culture endured. Pieces carry forward. Let's quickly revisit the 5 turning points we've been walking through, because they're guideposts for the future. First, the survival and spread of early humans out of Africa. Without that, no global story at all. Second, the long move into farming and settled life, Food surpluses made cities, writing, and states possible, and also disease and unequal power. The rise and collapse of interconnected ancient systems, like the Bronze Age world, these taught us that tight networks can amplify shock. That lesson keeps coming back. Fourth, the Columbian Exchange and Industrial Revolution era, when the whole planet's regions fused into one system powered by fossil fuels and machines. That created modern wealth and modern risk. Fifth, the current age of planetary and digital change. Climate stress, global disease spread, nuclear weapons, and data systems that linked us all. This turning point is unfinished. We get to help write how it ends. Where do you fit? Right now, you carry in your body genes from ancient mixers, eat crops first tamed 10,000 years ago, live inside political ideas hammered out in revolutions, and scroll on devices born in Cold War research and global supply chains. Every click adds a thread to the web future historians will study.
So the next time someone says history is boring,
remember, our species dodged extinctions, hacked plants, built empires, wrecked them, crossed oceans, unleashed industry, split the atom, wired the world, and now faces a planet reacting to our own success. The question is not will civilization fall? Civilizations always change. The real question is, can we change fast enough together to keep the good parts and drop the bad before the next big shock hits? Subscribe for more Geep history.